Welcome to Conversations with HJM. I'm Lisa Harris-Jones.
And I'm Tommy Thompson.
And today we have the Vice Chair of Ways and Means in the Maryland General Assembly, Jheanelle Wilkins. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're not only the Vice Chair of a major committee within the Maryland General Assembly, you're also the Chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. What's your year been like in that role?
This has been an amazing year for us, and going into my second year as chair, we're the largest legislative Black caucus in the entire country at 65 members. So being able to come together around issues that impact Black Maryland has been extremely impactful. And we had an entire agenda this legislative session that dealt with housing, it dealt with building Black wealth, public safety issues, education, and we had specific bills in each area and got a lot of them passed.
So tell me a little bit more about what was passed and what you're most proud of.
Absolutely. Our health area is one that I'm really proud of. We had a couple of pieces of legislation. One was on Black maternal health, the Black Maternal Health Act of 2024. And it really deals with the issue of Black women in Maryland dying at 2 times the rate than any other women in our state when it comes to their maternal health as a result of childbirth. And we've been working on this issue and chipping away at it for a number of years, but this bill includes a couple of things. One of them is that it requires our hospitals to participate in a scorecard so we can have a better sense of the outcomes, such as looking at the rate of C-sections, because there's a connection between C-sections and adverse health outcomes for mothers. And being able to look at that and have daylight around it so that, one, for better accountability, but also that women can make their best health decisions. We also worked with the governor's administration to create a $750,000 program that deals with breast cancer, prostate cancer, and lung cancer that will partner with organizations across the state to help address the disparity in these cancers and really engage the communities most impacted by that disparity, especially Black communities.
And what will you be doing in the next couple of months before the General Assembly begins?
So one of the things we do is we take our show on the road as the Black Caucus. We have a couple of town halls because we want to be in the community and share what we got done and interact with voters, with residents, to share about the elected officials that are working on their behalf and also get their input. A couple of weeks ago, we actually had a big moment in Hartford County when the Board of Education there decided to deny AP African Studies as a course in Hartford County. And that was just a huge deal because you're seeing around the nation bans on books. You're seeing where Black history is being denied in places like Florida, but we would never imagine that that would happen here. And so to see that take place, we sent a letter and the community organized, and they had 60 community members show up to their Board of Education meeting in opposition to that action by the board. And our letter, our Black Caucus letter, is actually read word for word by one of the board members at the meeting, and they reversed their decision.
And it's really nice to actually see the voice of the Black Caucus and the influence of the Black Caucus be amplified. And I think your leadership has really done a lot to solidify that. And I guess looking to 2025, and you have these 65 members and you have the town halls, how do you set an agenda for the Black Caucus so you don't dilute yourself, right?
That is such a good question. The first thing that we do is that we have those 5 priority areas. So we try to make sure that we focus in on health, on wealth, on making sure that we're lifting up public safety and education and housing. And then underneath those areas, we actually have committees that come together and help work with the community. So at the town halls, we get input and feedback and we collect all of that information. And we also look at what do we see as big issues in the upcoming legislative session that we want to make sure we weigh in on. And so there's all these different inputs that go into place, and we chart out in those 5 areas, what's the biggest impact that we can make, who is sponsoring these bills, and it's a really interesting process of figuring out our agenda. And when we go into session, we go in there ready to get a set of legislation passed and do our press conference and work really hard to make sure that we actually get those bills through.
And can we have maybe a little sneak peek of what that agenda might hold this year? Do you know yet?
Sure. Well, some of them, there were a handful of bills, and I want to thank the Speaker of the House and the Senate President and the Governor for being so supportive of our agenda, as well as the chairs of the committees. But there are a handful that we didn't get through this year. And one of them deals with banning the box. We've been talking a lot about the results of incarceration and convictions, and our governor recently pardoned over 175,000 cannabis-related convictions. And housing is one of the areas where Maryland has not banned the box yet. When someone could be convicted or just have something on their criminal record from years ago, and a landlord is able to deny them housing on their application because of that. And so that's one of the issues that we introduced. Delegate Adrian Bawafo sponsored that bill. It was a Black Caucus agenda priority this session. And we did not get that one through. So that legislation that makes it so that our people have access to housing and that their conviction doesn't prevent them from being able to just live and have that really important right of just a roof over their head. So that's one that'll definitely be coming back next year that I'm excited for us to just work together, figure out the language, tweak the language a little bit more, and get that one across the finish line.
And I was excited to learn as we prepare for this interview with you that you're picking up a bill that actually came out of your county. It's called Eric's Law.
Yes.
And we deal with a lot of clients in the mental health space and persons with autism. And this is such a wonderful bill. Could you kind of like tell the viewers what the bill does and why it's important?
Absolutely. So Eric's ID law actually came to me from one of my constituents, Linda, and her son, Eric. And Eric has autism, highly functioning. And during the 2020, 2021, she started talking with him about especially the rise of Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, about what to do if he encounters the police. And she tells the story of how he started crying because he did not know what to do or how to interact, and it's very scary. And he actually came up with this idea that on our state IDs and our licenses in Maryland, having a designation, and he actually drew a butterfly, and that's the designation that we'd like to use, where an officer would be able to see that this person has this butterfly on their ID or some type of designation on their ID, and that can alert them that, hey, you have to be more thoughtful about how you interact. They may not be able to respond to you in the way that you might want them to. And it helps people who have invisible disabilities that they're able to share that by having that designation. And I really hope that next year, the bill's been introduced a few times, but I hope that next year we'll be able to get it across the finish line.
So you're doing a lot.
A lot going on.
Is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go? Because you've got a lot on your plate, and we know you have to go work. So what else is it that you're doing out there?
Oh, yes, there's a whole lot going on. I'd love to invite our audience to the Maryland reception, the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland during Congressional Black Caucus Week. We started hosting our own reception because we're right here in the DMV. Congressional Black Caucus Week is like the biggest week for Black politics, and we wanted to make sure that Maryland made a stamp during that week with all of the Black leadership and Black excellence that we have here. And we're holding a reception on Friday, September 13th. And everyone is invited and welcome to come out and just celebrate Maryland and for us to take center stage when it comes to the Congressional Black Caucus Week. So I want to make sure I invite everyone to that.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Conversations with HJM.